You go from being a student, you're now a counsellor, you're qualified. What happens? What does that journey look like?
It's a bit of a transition because as a student, you are usually in some form of agency where you're working in placement. As a placement therapist, you'll have a huge support system. And part of that support system will be a more experienced colleagues. And when you leave the agency and you work for yourself, or even stay on at the agency and may get a position there, you'll be seeing more complex clients. Now, here's the thing, Ken. Counselling theories that are taught in college are 20th century theories. Rogers, Beck, all the great names that you hear. And it wasn't until 1980 that post-traumatic stress disorder, and I use the disorder thoughtfully, was something that came into the awareness of practitioners. 7 years later, Rogers sadly was no longer with us, and it heralded the beginning of 21st century clinical thinking, and it's never stopped. So trauma is a 21st century idea, how we engage with it in the therapy room. Online and telephone counselling, something that really wasn't discussed. And also the rise of neurodivergent people, the emergence through the change of vocabulary and the acknowledgement that autistic people now exist in the world, and as such may need a different form of support or a different approach. We could talk about race and culture. All of these are really 21st century ideas. And I think part of the journey of a therapist is to engage in 21st century ideas because we are meeting 21st century clients.
Yes, it's an interesting time. If you look at counselling jobs that are advertised, they might say that they want you to have the qualifications and they want you to be a member of an ethical body, but they also want a minimum of 2 years experience type of thing. And it almost feels like a catch-22, Rory, I'm going to be honest. I see this so often in the Facebook group. How do I get the 2 years experience if it's so difficult to get in the door? And I think you've actually touched on the gold here. So when we look at what your course gives you, what do you do in your course? It teaches you the theory, it teaches you the skills that you need for engaging with the client, it teaches you the ethics, working within an agency, working to an ethical framework. Those are like the cornerstones of counselling, but there's so much that the clients will teach you and that you'll learn from your interactions as you grow and as you work. And as you said, Rory, there are so many areas, the counselling training, they can't teach you every presentation and every specialism, but there are so many areas that are worth studying in. And when you come to the end of your formal studies, I've now finished studying, I'm now a counsellor, that's when the studying begins, because it's lifelong commitment to study. I think a good question is, if you're starting out as a counsellor, psychotherapist, what are the areas that you should maybe consider studying in first? What is going to give you that leap forward? What is going to make you stand out from the others on the CV? You've mentioned a few of them already, Rory. And yes, they get you into maybe the job that you want to have. But also, as soon as you start niching down or specializing in a certain area, you can experience such growth and expansion in your practice, Rory.
Yeah, absolutely. We're always in the service of clients. That's what we are. We're in service. And as part of being in service, we need to meet clients where they are. Sometimes we want to niche down. So we might want to niche with clients who may have experienced trauma, or we might want to work with the LGBTQA plus community, or we may be very interested in working with race and culture and the discussions that go on there. But generally speaking, even if we don't niche down, we're meeting members of the population who are more diverse, have more awareness of who they are than they ever did 20 years ago. So even if you're not niching down, to have an understanding of a lot of different areas of counselling work, I think is very useful. And let's be honest, Ken, if you're working with a general population, you're going to meet people who are neurodivergent. You're going to meet people who have experienced trauma. the whole point of CPD, of developing your practice. Because as Maslow said, if the only tool you have is a hammer, then every problem becomes a nail.
Wow. That's pretty powerful, and I think it reflects how we mature, grow, and recognize that growth through our CPD. If you're asking yourself in the here and now, how would I have been with that client knowing what I know now? It shows that there's a leap forward. It shows that there's been growth in the area. So the questions are always asked in our Facebook group. And if you're not a member of that, go to Facebook and put in Counselling Tutor and you'll find us. Come and join the conversation there. A lot of individuals finding that chicken and egg situation. How do I get a job without the experience? How do I get the experience when I can't get a job because I need the experience? And then what comes after that is, what areas can I specialize in, or what should I do first? Because there's so much CPD out there. If you look up Counselling CPD, there's just like an endless list. We've got a CPD library and there are hundreds and hundreds of hours of different topics and presentations within that. Where do you start? And I think a great starting point is trauma. You've mentioned trauma. And of course, trauma has always been presenting. It's just that we have different words and different understanding and different research to understand it better now and look at it and recognize it in the same way as neurodivergence is not just suddenly showing itself. It has always been there at some level. It's just that we maybe are more educated and now more able to see that. I think trauma is a really good starting place for any CPD.
Yeah, absolutely. Key word here is informed. You don't have to be an expert. When a client shares their story with you, if you're informed, it means that you are attuned. And that attunement is part of being empathic, being present, and also being supportive, being able to understand the client's frame of reference better. Well, there may be those people listening that said, well, I've just spent a load of money and a load of time training to learn one modality of therapy. And now what you're telling me, Rory and Ken, is I've got to learn a load more modalities. No, what we're saying is that this is an attunement. It's not a whole load of theory that you have to ingest. It's an addition, it's an adjunct to what we already know to make your practice more 21st century focused.
I like that. It broadens your practice range and enables you, when it is appropriate, to go deeper with the clients because you're informed, and the client can only go as far as you, the counsellor, can go. When you finish your studies and you recognize, yes, okay, I'm going to be studying for the entire time that I'm going to be a counsellor or psychotherapist, at least in my CPD, working on my practice in service of my clients, there are times where you look at your why. Why did I do this? Is there a specialist area? And I mentioned the word earlier, and it can be an ugly word. It's the word niche. I see a lot of confusion about what is a niche and how do you know where to niche. I'm going to go into niche a little bit here. Niching is around looking at what fulfills you. And it may take a few years of doing some CPD to find what it is that fulfills you. But if you find a certain client group or a certain group of people that you feel that you want to work with and you work at your best with, it lights you up and you feel energized when working with that kind of a presentation or that kind of a group, that might indicate that it keys into your key why of making a difference in people's lives, and you may choose to focus your training in that specific area. Putting a listing on a ethical body directory saying I'm a counsellor and I work with this and this and this looks very similar to another person's listing on that directory. When you niche and you say specialize in working with clients who are autistic or have family members who are autistic, it's going to resonate with less people, but it's going to resonate with the right people. And there's a thinking that if I narrow it down, specialize in one area, I'm going to be discounting tens of thousands of potential clients. But the truth is, you usually find that the practitioner who does niche down is busier than a general practitioner because they have a specialist area. So it enables you to stand out. I think there's a lot of considerations, and it can take some time to find where your specialist area might be or your niche area might be. And it may be as simple as I offer my services online. That can be a niche area, Rory.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also something to consider is that The general public are now more informed than they ever were. Clients are now more discriminating, I think, in who they want to see. Certainly towards the end of my private practice, the conversations weren't, do you have any availability? It was, do you work in this area? How much do you know about this? They would ask, I work with children and young people, and parents would say, do you have any child? And also towards the end of my private practice, people would contact me because I advertised that I work with trauma, that I knew about trauma. So what you're doing is you're actually matching the client's need to your service.
It is. And Rory has made a beautiful handout that you can get. It's absolutely free of charge. The handout of what every new counsellor needs to know. It covers everything that we've discussed today, plus some extra bits in there as well, some reflection points for you to consider for yourself. It's your practice, and you're going to be guiding your practice for as long as you're in it. This is a great place to start on that.